Thank you very much and welcome to KMB Media. Now, between 2012 and 2017, I met a brother, a friend, a young man. Both of us were young then. We had left campus probably a year before. Then, we were young men with dreams of conquering Nairobi. We might have been there in different instances, but we chose to become friends. Many years later, Stephen Letoo, a brother, a friend, and I have chosen a path that has put us on a table that has given us access to a number of people that we only saw on television when we were young. Others have grown with us and have become big names. But one giant that we mourn today has brought us together. Raila Amolo Odinga, a man we covered in the elections before. Between 2017, when we were trusted by the media houses we work for to go out and campaign, towards 2022, just before I left the newsroom, Stephen Letoo and I covered Raila Amolo Odinga. But today, I bring you Stephen Letoo, a man who was extremely close, and I would dare say was closer to Raila Odinga than I was. They spoke on phone. I never spoke to him on phone. Stephen Letoo, my brother. Everybody has been given an opportunity to eulogize Raila Odinga. I don't think you have gotten that time. They thrust you into everything. I remember when we spoke on 15th of October, you were planning to go to Kitui to cover Mashujaa Day, only for me to see later on your online that you will be on a flight to India. I don't think you've been given an opportunity to mourn your friend. You are working.
I've been working, and it has been one of the worst 3 days of my life. It has been pain and professionalism together is something that I can say I never anticipated that I will deliver. When I was told that Letoo, get your passport ready in the next 45 minutes, you'll be going to Mumbai in India, I almost declined. But I told myself, Letoo, look, in the long run, you've been covering Raila Odinga alive. Why can't you cover him when he is no more? So I got myself up together, quickly rushed to the airport, and that flight to India was the longest flight of my life. Not because of the distance, not because of the miles, but because of a lot of things that were going through my mind. I could hardly eat food in that plane because I imagined I'm going not to bring Raila home alive, but I'm going to bring him back home dead. When I sat in that seat number 8C of KQ200 to India, anytime I blink my eye, I close my eye, I open them, wish I go and find Raila at least sick in hospital, not dead in a coffin.
I know there has been a lot, and just judging from what you're basically saying and the poses, it tells of a story. But even as you wanted to decline, there is that push that you had. Is it that you wanted to see him one last time, even if you are told that he is no longer there?
I mean, it was a very difficult moment. I remember the moment the news broke in the morning, I rushed to Karen, when I saw the traffic of people I know there is when I could confirm. By the time I'm leaving Karen in the morning, I realized I had put on the clothes I had yesterday. I mean, I just woke up so confused, not doing anything. I was switching off and on my phone because people are calling me. I do not want to speak to them because I do not have the information. But all the same, it hit me hard, really, really, really hard. And with his death, a lot of years were buried in Bondo. Political careers, you know, there are people who were there. For instance, the political reporting, for instance.
Just before we get to the careers that were buried, paint to us a picture, because what we could get were short snippets of what you could post before the flight took off. That is when you had access to the internet and when you landed. But there was a whole 6 hours on the flight. Majority of the people that were in that flight were government officials. Others were friends who wanted to go and have the first glimpse of Raila Odinga. How was it for these 6 hours? I know you were not the only people on that flight, but once the flight reaches at a certain level, people are allowed to remove their safety belts and mingle. How was it? How were people behaving? Did everybody sit on their seat and decide that nothing will be said? How was it?
I mean, that flight, I can tell you, everybody got into that flight and everybody looked shattered. Everybody was sitting in their seat. You will think we do not know each other. Everybody was silent. Everybody was, you know, you're not on an internet. You were just up there in the sky. A very silent trip.
Actually, one of the most tracked flights ever.
Yes. We were very silent. Nobody was talking to another. The only time you could see interaction and when food was being brought for dinner and breakfast, but you will think that hatukuwa tunajuana because kila mtu alikuwa amenyamaza. Not in the executive side, not in the family side, not in the media side. Kila mtu alikuwa amenyamaza.
How was it when you landed?
When we landed, number one, we were told, first of all, the media team, use this go to this bus. The other team that was led by Musalia Mudavadi, PCS, were told to go to the lounge. The first thing to see was the coffin. The coffin had already been brought. The next person I see is Ogeta. The other people I see are 4 gentlemen surrounding the coffin. What is around the coffin? We see a lot of military officers for India. That plane was not switched off. The engine was still running because the moment we got there, we prayed with the body. It was draped in the Kenyan flag, straight to the cargo side of the KQ.
How much time is this? Are we talking about?
We are talking about 1.5 hours.
So within 1 hour you have arrived?
Yes.
The government officials have been taken to the VIP?
Yes.
The media team has been left on the aeroplane side?
The VIP is adjacent to where the coffin was. It was brought outside the lounge.
But you were outside now looking at the drapes?
And where the VIP lounge was and where the body was like 30 meters from where the plane was. So you get the distance. I mean, it was very short. So when we grabbed the flag, that's about 1.5 hours, we got back to the plane. And immediately we turned back to Kenya. Yeah.
And you came into a waiting crowd. The airport was Did you get a chance to view Raila's body at the airport?
The chaos that were in the
No,
airport.
no. In India.
The body was not prepared for viewing. Because even the manner in which it was prepared, it was not prepared so that it's open for viewing. It was just now put in that temporary casket for transportation back home. And we assume now back home is where now we could come and now view his body.
Two people that have been also very close to you, Winnie Odinga, the Member of Parliament for Yala, Maurice Ogeta, one of the people that will also give you access to Raila Odinga at a number of his functions. What were their first words when you met them in India?
The first word that Ogeta told me, mzee ametuacha, siamini. Nikamkumbatia. I told him, let's be strong. This is our last assignment. We can't be weak. Play your part. I'll play my part. Just the way we normally do when we are covering him on campaigns. And that is exactly what we did. Despite the pain and everything, we said, for Baba, let us do this as our very last assignment to him. And that is why the amount of dedication that we put into it, the amount of sleepless nights, the amount of early waking up, because we knew this is the last honor.
What about Winnie?
Winnie was so broken. He met her there. Only thing that was left for Winnie is the heart. In India, Winnie kept on holding the heart. She puts down for a few seconds, she grabs it back. For Winnie, that was Raila, that heart. And if the way she presented it to her mother at the airport when we landed, she held it as like a baby. Yani, she will not drop it down until she delivered it to the mother, Ida Odinga.
Fast forward 6 hours later, you land at JKIA to a sea of humanity. It is not new to you, having covered Raila Odinga for quite a while, and the many crowds that were there, the many people that will come to his events. How did this hit differently?
I anticipated that, and I knew Raila supporters in Nairobi. I have interacted with them, I have covered them, I have been to Raila's functions. It's wild. Raila has wild, fanatical following that they will take anything, they will take any bullet for Raila. And I said, if people are not being locked out of the airport at the security check out there near Mombasa Road, they would rather close the airspace, because these people will mourn inside the airport for the longest that they will want. And that is exactly what happened. Had it not been for the military that was there, Raila supporters will not have left JKIA. They will have mourned Raila and kept vigil in that airport. Yeah.
Is Stephen Letoo happy, or is Stephen Letoo contented that he's the one who was given the opportunity to go to India to bring back Baba back home?
Yeah, it's part of the assignment. We expected, we knew when something of that magnitude happened, we activated all our sources. We got ready for anything. You get ready to be told, go to Bondo, go to Kisumu, go to wherever. And I was told to go to India. I knew that was what awaited us. In fact, had it not been that the government had prepared for that trip, I was almost telling my bosses, look, we need to be ahead of the rest. Let's get ourselves air tickets, fly to India. Until now, the president announced that there is a team leaving, and we managed to, get that opportunity to travel with the government delegation.
Steve, I want to get back to a point that you have said. By the time you landed in Nairobi to when he was buried, it has been there on television. But I want to come back to this specific matter you spoke about. You said many political careers, or many careers, were buried in Bondo. What does that basically mean?
I mean, we could have very good headlines from the newspapers, very nice news angles, even in the media, because of RAILA'S, because of RAILA'S actions or inactions. But right now, there is no one to give us again the caliber and the kind of news that we could have those very, selling headlines out there in the media. With Raila having left now, Sasa, it means we'll have to, rejig ourselves now in the media even to see how we can be, creating good political coverage, good political news. You see how Raila, when he goes to a political rally, how you enjoy covering the political rallies of Raila through dancing, through issuing threats, yeah, to government when he needed something to be done. I mean, there is something we will miss definitely in our media space. When you go to the political class, there are people who can be elected just for defending Raila, so vicious, and there are those ones who get elected
because they hit Raila.
For hitting Raila, condemning Raila the hardest. So those two types of politicians are jobless in the next election.
Because I also remember there are people who said that immediately Raila Odinga joined William Ruto, there are also some careers that died because they had nothing else to do. Actually, I want to fall short of saying some names because there are people that were so used to hitting Raila, and he had become a boogeyman to the extent that the moment he shook hands with first President Uhuru Kenyatta between 2018 and 2022, there are people that had to decamp to the other side.
Absolutely.
For them to survive politically. But now there are people in government where they had run away from Uhuru. Now William Ruto is the president of the Republic of Kenya. He has shook hands with Raila Odinga. Now the people that had gone to the other side no longer have a job. So it was very interesting.
Indeed.
And some of them have even gone into political oblivion.
Yeah, and that is why the reason why Raila was mourned, it's because a Raila friend and a Raila enemy, they came together. Yeah. Because each one had a vested interest in Raila Odinga. And Raila's death hit them in their different way. That is why everyone was mourning Baba.
I remember Kijana Wamalwa also describing Raila Odinga and saying that those who love him to death. And those who hate him to death.
Absolutely.
So there was a mix of emotions even when the news hit that Raila Odinga had died.
It's what we'll call Raila phobia and Raila mania.
Yes. But in a nutshell, I think me and you have covered him. And I remember a time when we were at Chungwa House.
Yeah.
That is the old Chungwa House that belonged to Karoli Omondi. And for the longest time, they operated from there. I remember there's a time Raila Odinga came for a press conference. And immediately he finished that press conference, he called me and said, Muriithi, nataka utusaidie 1, 2, 3 ways. You know, he was this kind of people who never understood or never wanted to put class. If it is you he thought would help him on that particular day, ni wewe ndiye atakujia. But fast forward to the relationship that you had with him, there are people who viewed you as an adopted son of Raila Odinga. In fact, there was a promise that was made to you in the run-up to the 2022 elections. If he won, you were supposed to get something.
I mean, even without getting to that, it is true that my relationship with Raila Odinga was that one of father-son. Anytime we'll meet in a press conference, anytime we will share a chopper with him, he will ask me, how are you doing? Are you okay? You know, he will ask me, watoto nyumbani wako aje? He will also ask me, how are the Masai saying? You know, every time he always knew that, someone is there. I mean, he has to check up on me. Kuniambia, mefanya kazi vizuri, and you always appreciated every single day we were together. When you do news for him, you always appreciated the next time you meet and say, fanya kazi mzuri. So I think he's an appreciative man. I think he's always put that fatherly, that fatherly in him. And so when we covered him so vigorously and extensively in both 2017 and 2022 general election, I felt that by associating myself to Raila Odinga and his political campaigns, it gave me a lot of experience, politically speaking. It gave me a lot of insights. It gave me a lot of, place to meet a lot of people. It also hardened me because at most time we also covered him even in protests. We have, through him, we have known how to, juggle around and of course always staying safe. So we've gotten that brevity of being brave. Raila, the brave man, is what we have also learned from him. And it's something that for me, I have taken up to myself that this is the person I will want to be. A brave man, a fearless man who will always confront a situation head on. Yeah.
I actually think you have a political future. That is
I have stayed with Raila for a very long time. And the moment, when time comes, I think the best thing to do is to apply some of Odingaism. Yeah, in whatever one do. So I've learned one, two, three from him, going all the way from addressing urban supporters to addressing, uh, rural supporters, including Todonyang in Turkana. We go to Turkana and you feel people don't know Kiswahili, they don't know English, but they love Raila and they are listening to Raila.
In fact, what many people don't know is that in the run-up to the 2022 elections, Stephen Letoo used to amaze me a lot because in as much as then when I was working for NTV, I had a vehicle that would take me across the country during that time. Stephen Letoo had a designated chopper sometimes. And number two, when he did not, he had a vehicle. And by the time the Raila team and Mother Karua would go back to Nairobi to start the journey the next day, Stephen Letoo would drive overnight to the next venue. And it didn't matter where it was. I remember there's a time you drove all the way from Turkana to Bungoma for the campaigns at that time.
Equally from Lare in Meru to Kisumu.
To Kisumu.
Same night. And actually, covering Raila has been one of the most difficult things. And we have survived a lot of road accidents at night, running to ensure that we catch up with Raila Odinga the following morning in where he will be. Because not every time we had access to helicopters. Sometimes those helicopters were full and we couldn't get space. So
sometimes somebody would be removed.
Yes, absolutely.
You would be removed for somebody to take the space.
So sometimes we just have to do a more than 400 kilometers on the road at night. And sometimes our bosses might not know, but they will just call us in the morning. We say, already we are here. Already we are here. We have survived a lot of road accident at night. We drive, you go to terrains you don't know, you are driving and then you bump into a place that is heavily raining when you had no information. So I mean, there is at one point in Turkana where we went by road. By that time, the road between Lokichar and Lodwa was not yet complete. There was a day we slept on that road because our vehicle got stuck, not in the mud, in the sand. We had to sleep between Lokichar and Lodwa because we had gone all the way to Lokichogio in Turkana. We did a rally in Kakuma. We did a rally in Lokichogio. And now it was time to come back and go and do another rally the following day in Ortum. Tum in West Pokot and Sigor. When we were sleeping there, that is a very dangerous zone. Very, very dangerous. So for us, we said, hapa ni Mungu tu atatupeleka leo. So luckily we got some help tukatoka, but Raila is a person who will, if he is meant to do this, he has to.
Your last major assignment with Raila Odinga was the AUC.
Yeah.
How was that?
The African Union is another thing that we closely covered Raila. We went there for the Mjadala Africa. Before that was the debate between the candidates. Raila Odinga really did well. Even when you followed the feedback from the online and the viewers, they say that Raila really performed very well in articulating that African dream in his quest to become the AEC chair. Well, now we went for the election, and every time we could wish, Raila Odinga well. He was so surprised to see me in Ethiopia, by the way. Maybe he thought that I will only cover him back home here. But when we went to Ethiopia, he was so happy to see me, and we really tried to bring that the Pan-Africanist in him. And when we got into the election now, where the presidents were coming in, the vote going to be taken, he again exhibited what he exhibits here in Kenya about you lose an election, you've lost, you concede. And that is exactly what he did for the AUC seat. But that equally hurt people around him. The funny thing about Raila is people around him always get most hurt in such election losses than himself. And so,
because of the investment
yes,
they have put in.
So, I mean, for me, Raila has also taught us and the world about enduring a loss. That is why at the moment we have accepted that is normal. We have accepted, we have released him, and now we are, despite enduring that pain, we still feel that Raila Odinga has died, but his spirit will live on. Even in the political going forward, a lot of people will not be elected if you are branded that you have betrayed Raila Odinga when he's dead. A lot of people will be.
So his spirit will still linger in the 2027 election.
Still linger in the 2027 general election. That one, take it to the bank.
Anybody who will go against Raila Odinga and his ideals in 2027
ataitwa msaliti wa Raila, and that will be a very dangerous card. That will be a very dangerous tag in any politician, especially from the Orange Democratic Movement. If you get that tag ya msaliti wa Raila wakati amekufa, very dangerous.
There has been so much that has been said about Raila Odinga and his direction. Without going too much into detail, do you think every side has a right in what they are saying?
Absolutely. You see, a person like Raila Odinga might say a statement, but nobody or everybody interprets it their own way.
So Raila is a constitution. You have to go to the Supreme Court
to interpret. I mean, Raila might say a word and it will mean a million things, whichever way you look at it. And that is why there is this whole confusion that it's only him that will have made it clear or set the record straight. But at the moment, that Raila very last statement will be interpreted, misinterpreted, interpreted, misinterpreted by each and every politician.
Before I left the newsroom in 2022, I did a story, and I believed at that time that there were so many other factors that led to Raila's loss of the last bullet. I interviewed a number of people, and one of them that had very serious comments during that time was Embakasi East Member of Parliament, Babu Owino, who believed that it was sabotage. That was the last story that I did, and I remember also that I had a lot of interactions with Raila Odinga in my time, in my 12 years in the newsroom, having been also a senior reporter for part of that time. And most of it, I campaigned to be put in the teams that went out with Raila Odinga. And I remember that time as one of the, or I remember Raila Odinga as one of the politicians that I covered and got satisfaction as a political reporter. So Steve Letoo, also as we finish, we would like you to look straight into the camera and just say a word that you feel has comforted you during this period, this last 6 days since we lost Raila Odinga.
I mean, it's been a tough time, and it's still very difficult to accept that Raila Amolo Odinga is no longer there. There are a lot of slogans have been given: Tinga, Agwambo, Jacom. But there is one slogan that nobody has remembered. There was one time Raila was called Nyundo. And that is one of the names that people have forgotten. And that is why when you go to Raila Odinga's rallies here in Nairobi or whatever, Kisumu, you'll find someone who has an orange hammer. And that is the time Raila was having the hammer vehicle, if you remember. The Akaita Raila Nyundo. But all the same, for me, really short of words, other than just hoping and wishing that Raila Odinga's dreams that he had of, social justice, adhering to the rule of law, upholding the constitution, supporting devolution, police reforms particularly, and, the judicial systems to work, is achieved one day in this country. And we hope that those who have been vested to, lead Kenyans will see the importance of not only looking at Raila Odinga's legacy in the eye, but also trying to get a better Kenya. At the moment, what we need a young Raila who will lead another revolution of this country for another, another century, because we are now confronted with a totally different kind of a generation, where the Raila Odinga and his cause left the country. They have given the constitution, the multi-party freedoms, which are now all enshrined in the constitution. Now there should be now another phase of revolution that will now guide the country based on the needs that confront the current generation, and ensure that in the years to come, in the century to come, they'll look back and say, we did it. Because look at the fathers of independence. They gave us independence and they left. The Kenyattas, the Jaramogis, and they left. Now in came the second liberators, the Raila Odinga and the co. They have brought the new constitution. They have brought all the multi-party. Now what will the fourth liberators do? What will the fourth liberators do, and who are the fourth liberators? The fourth liberators is us. And that is why we want also to be judged positively when our grandchildren will be at our age, to say that the country under fourth liberators is a better country than where the third liberators left, just the way the third liberators and the second liberators left the country better than it was during independence in 1964.
Stephen Letoo, senior political affairs reporter, Citizen TV, and also a media friend of Raila Odinga. So we were trying to piece up some of the comments that he believed had and have not been heard before, and we tried in as much to put it out there so that you can also hear from him. There are those that have said what they have said, those that covered him before, but there is the young us who covered Raila Odinga in his last days, but he never looked at us as children, but also looked at us as vessels that could help give that message to the younger people. My name is Kennedy Mureithi, Bundi of KMB Media. Stay with us. We'll be giving you more.